Just doing a bit of a discussion today. I'm Tom Wilson. I'm from Fox Sports and hosting this little session. We've got a few athletes for you to just talk about how they've dealt with a few things during this time. We've all been going through difficult changes, things that we haven't been able to predict. And hopefully these guys can give you a bit of an insight to what they've been able to do in this time. I'll give you a quick introduction. We've got Josh King from the Newcastle Knights. Josh, how are you, mate?
Good, thanks.
That's good. That's good. We've got the Katz brothers, who are judo athletes who've been to the Olympic Games. How are you, boys?
Yeah, man. How you going?
That's good. And we've got David Gower from the Parramatta Eels. How are you, Dave?
Hey, good, mate. Thanks for having me. Hey, everyone. How are you?
Very well, thank you. And we've got Sam Poolman from the GWS Giants. Sam, how are you?
Good, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Very well. We've got a lot of things to talk through this evening, and we might as well get cracking straight away. Now, I'll start with you, Josh, from Newcastle Knights. How have you found this time? I know a lot of people have had a lot of uncertainty, unsure what's going to be happening, let alone next week, as into tomorrow. What are some of the things that you've been able to do to keep focused and remain positive?
Yeah, like you said, it's been pretty uncertain times, sort of changing day to day, I guess. It was probably six or 8 weeks ago now that we got told that we weren't allowed to come into training. So we had to pretty much go into training on our own. We were lucky enough that the club gave us gym gear and equipment that we could sort of train at home with. But besides that, we were sort of on our own. So we had a 6-week block there where we were just sort of, on our own, just training and doing our best. For me to sort of stay motivated, I had to look at my goals and what I wanted to achieve. It's, with this COVID situation, I guess it's something we can't change. It's, nothing we can do can solve it, sort of thing. So I just had to sort of work on my own goals and what I wanted to achieve. And that for me is to be able to play NRL football. And the best chance that I've got to do that is to be fit and strong when we do go back to play. So I think in the 6-week period, it sort of gave me the opportunity to, train hard and work on my fitness and do everything I can that when the football does come back, that I'm in the best position to be able to play.
There was so much uncertainty around that, and finally you got a return date. How about for you, Josh and Nathan Katz? You've been to Olympic Games. Your cycles are 4 years. That's how you build up to that. How did you guys handle the news that the Olympic Games was postponed this year?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were in Spain when the whole COVID situation started to unravel a little bit, and it sort of went from something that wasn't very serious at all to you need to get on the next flight back home to Sydney. So we were the first day of the people that got quarantined in their house, like the really strict quarantine and isolation. So that took a little bit of adjustment. And then I guess over the next week or two, the news came out that the games would be delayed, which was really disappointing. Obviously, it's a 4-year process to get to the Olympics. We had pretty much got to the real end of the qualification process. We just about secured qualification. So to not know, there was a lot of uncertainty of whether or not you would still be in a good spot or what really would be happening if they were even going to cancel the Olympics altogether. So to get the delay of a year was disappointing, but then to have a date sort of let you shift the goalposts again. So it meant the goal hasn't changed, just the date and the time frame has. So I think that was probably the biggest thing. As soon as we could put a date towards the same goal that was still there before, then you could start working towards that a little bit more productively. David,
you're in the same boat as Josh from Newcastle, obviously. Just give us a bit of your background, because I know you've been an apprentice before. Having that as a background before playing NRL, is that something that's helped you in this difficult time?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, my situation was very similar to Josh. The whole NRL got sort of shut down all of a sudden, along with, I suppose, the rest of society. But, for me, my perspective, I had an electrical background, so I was a fully qualified electrical apprentice before I became an NRL athlete. And I think I've been an athlete now for 10 years, so it was a little while ago. But given the unknown around COVID and, the potential for the infection rate to have spiked, similar to what's happened in Europe and the US, I guess, I was in a unique situation where I was looking at maybe dusting off the old tool belt and reaching out to a few of our contacts and maybe picking the pliers up and going back to work. So I suppose if this the NRL season got cancelled, I was probably looking at maybe going back to work, because our pay would have stopped from sort of this month. So, we're very lucky that society did the right thing and everyone looked after each other and sort of listened to all the guidelines that come out. But it gave me a real belief and understanding. I've got 2 young girls as well. So I'm a father of 2 kids and I've got a third on the way. So my bills were going to keep coming and I have to always be able to provide for them no matter what. So having that apprenticeship behind me and a few of the networking opportunities I've had in my professional sports career, I was certainly ready, willing and able to go and pick up the tool belt again if I had to.
Sam, we're still sort of not exactly sure what's happening with the netball season. We know it'll come back at some stage. How have you dealt with really not knowing when you're going to play again?
We're hoping that we possibly might have some more positive news this week with potentially a date. I think we'll take that more than what our season looks like, but really challenging, and the same as what I guess has already been said. You go from being in such a routine where you know where you need to be, what you need to wear, what you need to do, and to then get that taken off the table certainly has to readjust what your goals are. And I've honestly found it really challenging to keep motivation going. We started pre-season in November last year and potentially might not play our season until August, September. So pretty challenging to stay motivated, considering that I play a team sport because I love being around people, and now to be individually isolated is certainly challenging.
What have you learned about yourself then, Sam?
Learnt to go back to process rather than outcome. I think I got away with being a yes person and such a busy how much I can cram into a week and take an opportunity. And I'm on our Players Association with the league, and learnt pretty quickly through COVID that you have to take every day as it comes and not to worry about things that haven't happened yet. And old Sam Poolman certainly did that, worried and stressed about things that may not have happened yet, might not happen. I think that's my biggest learning from COVID, is that I can't control the virus. We didn't see it coming, but I can do the things that I can control. And my biggest aim is to transition that into when we go back into sport and life goes back to normal, how I can keep that going.
Yeah, that's a good message there, David. What have you, with the uncertainty, what have you talked to your children about, and what have you done to help you reach the next set of goalposts? Are you a day-by-day person, similar to Sam, where you had to peel it all back? What are some of the strategies you've used?
Yeah, I think my kids are young, so my oldest is in year 1, so she was pretty happy not to have to go to school. It was her first day back today, so that didn't go fantastic. And then my other little one, she's 4.5, and she's at daycare, so she's not going back to daycare just yet. So as far as they're concerned, they understand the importance of social distancing, which is really good. They love giving their grandparents a hug, and my mum is sick, so she's had to be stay away from the kids, and that's been difficult for them and for my mum as well. But as far as my own processes, I can only control what I can control. Like the other athletes have said, it's out of our control, COVID and the repercussions from what happens from society. So all I did was just be grateful for what I have. I've got healthy children, I've got my health, I've got my fitness. I still have an ability to maintain a certain level of fitness. There was constant communication going with the club, and similar to Josh, we knew it was going to be 6, 8, 10 weeks. We had to stay fit, because if we did get up and running again, we knew it was going to be a short pre-season. And just let me just add that at 34, a second pre-season is not fantastic. What I've got through it, I'm looking forward to playing again. But so it's all about compartmentalising and really breaking it down into those small blocks, whether it's a week or a day. It just depends on the individual. But I focused a lot of my energy around just being grateful for the life I have, my health, the family, the health of my family, and just controlling what I can control, because I don't like to sweat the things that are out of my control.
To the Cats boys, an interesting situation for you guys. Normally you'd be overseas at this time. You've got a chance to be back at home. Is that something that you've relished, or what are some of the things that you guys have done to cope?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely an adjustment for us, spending so many months of the year usually overseas, that knowing that we were going to be at home and for like an extended period of time was definitely something to adjust. And I guess the most important thing for us was trying to get into a bit of a routine. We were spending the first probably 2 to 3 weeks watching the news like for a couple of hours every day, just to find out what was happening with the situation. And just taking a step back from that and just focusing on the things we can do. So trying to stay in as good shape as possible. And then whenever competitions and training come back for us, which still doesn't look like it's going to be for a while, then we'll be as prepared as possible. But until then, just trying to do the things that we can do and not letting everything else sort of dwell on us too much. And just on top of that as well, similar to what Dave was saying about being grateful for what you do have. I mean, we spend so much time overseas and away from family and our friends at home that it's so often that me and Josh say to each other, oh, I miss home, or I miss this person or this. And then we actually got home and it wasn't under the circumstances and conditions we wanted. It was a big disappointment at the beginning to be at home and to be away from training competition. But then we sort of had to step back and be like, this is actually something that we miss a lot of the time for the last 4 years. So really to be our parents, obviously, like everyone's getting older. So it's nice to have a little bit more time with them and just to be grateful that they're healthy, that we're healthy, and the situation isn't ideal, but it has had definitely some positives for us as well.
Yeah, it's a great attitude. Kingy, a lot of people have challenges, whether it's forced upon them like COVID-19 or whether it's whether it's injuries or things that are happening in their lives. Do you reel back to something like that and look at things that you've been able to get through previously, whether it be injury? Have you sort of looked back to that during this time? Yeah,
definitely. And I think a perspective that I've always had is there's always someone worse off than you. There's always someone in a worse position than what we are, I guess. For me, I'm like Dave. I completed my apprenticeship, but I actually completed mine part when I was actually playing footy. So my first year of NRL, I was in the third year of my apprenticeship. So I sort of had to juggle my work and footy life. And at the time it was quite challenging. I was working long days at a full-time job and then having to, travel to training and stuff in the afternoon, driving an hour from where I live to training each day. So that was probably one of the toughest times of my life. And I was able to get through that. So this, just happened to stay at home for a few weeks, training on my own. It wasn't a massive deal for me, I guess. Like I say, there's a lot of people in a lot of worse situations than what we are in. So we're very lucky in a respect.
What advice would you give to people who are feeling uncertain? It's I think everyone really is feeling uncertain. I think I've heard a statement saying that, it hasn't missed anyone, COVID-19. It's affected every single person and it doesn't discriminate. What sort of advice would you have to people who have uncertainty and I guess a missing connection with others because they might be out of work for the time being?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what the other guys have said. This won't last forever. It will be over, hopefully sooner rather than later. And life will get back to normal. I guess just to have a routine at the present time. I think for me, it's easy to get into a slump when you don't really have anything, going on if you're not working or anything like that, or if you've been let go from your job or something like that. So it's easy to get into a slump. So I think for me, every day, like having a routine, having an end goal that you want to achieve, once life goes back to normal. So every day you can work towards that goal, whether it's work or something like that. I think being proactive and, even calling up companies now and asking them if they've got any work going or, when they're starting back up, just to show that you're keen and that you're eager to, try and get out there and, do a bit of work and make a bit of money. Just little things like that. I think, the biggest thing is just routine, not getting into a slump.
David, how much have you missed being around the boys, I guess, the Mighty Eels? And I know you've got your young family with you, but what have you sort of done to try and replace that during this period?
Yeah, a lot of the teams have WhatsApp chats now where you're still in contact with your group. And, our club, we organise weekly Zoom catch-ups as well. We'll split into 3 different athletic development groups. And so we'd catch up and try to keep each other a little bit accountable. And like I said, I think most people know what a WhatsApp group's about. It's just a carve up. So there was a bit of banter, you keep the boys honest where you can and, a little bit of light sledging and those sorts of things. But, everyone was really good. We had enough of our programming and those sorts of things to keep each other honest. So, but, getting back around the boys it's refreshing. When you're sort of stuck at home like everyone else. I mean, for us, we're very lucky to be able to still get out and sort of train and play and do our job to its full capacity at the moment. So, we're very lucky in that regard. But, it's just understanding that, I suppose.
Sam, you touched on that a little bit earlier. What sort of things have you been doing to replicate that? I'm not sure if the girls have a WhatsApp group or are you setting yourselves little goals each day, or whether it's even just talking to each other through social media?
I think every sporting team has to have a WhatsApp. I think that's just given with it. But yeah, we try and connect through there. Obviously, social media and the digital world can bring us together. And one thing that I've found, I do a lot with younger athletes. And for me, without even, I guess, noticing at the start, I was trying to connect with them. And that was a way of me being able to cope. I was so used to having a touch on the community and younger athletes, and that was taken away. So for me, creating Zoom and giving them challenges to keep them ticking over. But we all play sport because it's the sense of belonging that we have, and we're part of a community. And I was concerned that was missing from a lot of people's lives. And so I think that was a way, yes, I connected through the Giants, through our team, because that's just what we do. We're all missing each other. But I think, for me, connecting with my younger athletes and through the community is kind of what's kept me ticking over as well.
And you've obviously been able to do that through social as well, but your business on the side as well. I mean, not to be too dramatic, but you kind of had a bit of a double whammy, I guess, because you're out and about so much as well.
Yeah, so when we first got taken into training and got told we are aligned with the Giants AFL, so they played round one and we got taken into training thinking that it was all okay, and the NRL and the AFL finished, and then we got taken in going, you can't train here anymore. So those are the things you instantly get worried about. When can we play netball again? You get in your little bubble, and conversations pretty quickly move to, yeah, if you're not playing, we don't have a product, which means we can't pay you. So yeah, all of a sudden I was on 30% of a netballer wage, which is quite scary. And then, yeah, my business, Aspire Netball, also is netball and community, and that element was taken away. So yeah, I'm not going to lie that it wasn't stressful, but one thing that's been spoken to me a lot is during crisis reveals character. And that's what I just kind of keep reminding myself, that what the guys have touched on today, it can be worse. There are people in worse positions, and it's what I do will move me forward rather than worrying about what has happened. That's
great. And Josh and Nathan, with not being overseas, and we touched on a little bit earlier that you haven't been home for so long and you've been able to enjoy that. How are you sort of thinking about, I know that they've pushed the Olympics back a year, but there's still no certainty around that. What sort of things are you doing, especially knowing that you probably can't get overseas for a long time to compete as well?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us, like we talked about before, was just having a little bit of certainty around what was coming next. And as soon as we knew that there wasn't going to be anything for a couple of months, we could take a little bit of a mental break. The last couple of months especially were really stressful, and a lot of travel to try to secure the last qualification spots for Tokyo. So knowing then that the goal for Tokyo could be pushed back a little bit, with the goal is still there in the back of our minds, but it's a little bit more indirect now, as opposed to working every day just towards the next specific event. It's just now trying to do as much as we can in the meantime, but definitely not stressing too much and using the time to work on the things that we didn't necessarily were able to work on when we were so focused on each competition that was coming up.
David, I know you have to run off shortly. Just, I guess, before you do go, what would be your advice to people who, maybe a little bit worried, maybe just looking for something just to help them keep them going, and I guess focus looking ahead rather than sort of looking too far back and worrying about what might happen?
Yeah, I'll just sort of reinforce a few of the key messages that the guys have said tonight. I mean, focus on what you can control. This COVID situation is not going to last forever. I think that we all need to understand that and just accept it for what it is at the moment. It's a tough situation for all. We're all in it together, and we're on the way out now. So, it is only temporary at the moment. There's going to be a light at the end of this tunnel, and, for me, it might be focusing on gratitude, but for someone else, it might be giving yourself 3 very simple tasks to do every day. And that gives you a sense of achievement, which gives you endorphin release, which makes you feel better about yourself. There's some very simple things, and then it may be, your daily goals progress into weekly goals, or, if you're at home, maybe there's some stuff you can do around the yard. There's so many basic things that are still going to give you that sense of achievement. And as society starts opening up, you're going to be able to get that social interaction now, as long as we still social distance and we still look after our own hygiene. But, we are on the upslide here, and we're starting to come out of it. So, just understand what you're good at, focus on what you're good at, and in the time you still have, try to upskill yourself, whether that's through education or physically or whatever it may be. There's ample opportunity to be a better person and come out of COVID a better rounded athlete, a better rounded individual and person.
Yeah, that's great sentiment. Appreciate your time, mate. I know you got to run off to training, so thanks for chatting with us, and hopefully a few of you can at least take something out of what you had to say today. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on. Hope there's a few Eels fans out there, and if not, we can make us your second team. See you guys.
Good luck on Thursday, mate.
Yeah, that's right. Bye, guys.
See you, mate. Kingy, now we've spoken briefly in the past. Sort of wanted to break down how you sort of approach each day, and have you adjusted your goals at all this season after what's happened? Have you had to do that, or you've actually just reinforced what you want to achieve this year?
I think for me, a goal every year is to make that first grade team, I guess. Round one, that's what you want to achieve. And for me this year, I had a bit of an upset preseason, I guess you could say. I had a few personal health issues that put me on the sideline for a while. I wasn't able to train. So starting the season, I was a little bit underdone. I probably hadn't trained as much as I would have liked to. And I guess with all the COVID stuff happening, it was almost like it gave me an opportunity to try and, get my fitness to where it needed to be able to play first grade, and gave me a chance to catch up to all the rest of the boys, I guess you could say. So every day, I said before that I tried to have a routine, and I didn't want to get into a slump. So I didn't want to dwell on the negatives and, wake up every day feeling sorry for myself. I wanted to try and have a clear direction of where I wanted to go and what I wanted to achieve. And that was to be the strongest, the fittest I could be for when we start back. So every morning I would wake up and I would have sort of a time that I wanted to train. Had the gym out in the shed, and would go down to the local park for a run. So I'd sort of get them things knocked over, and then I'd have the rest of the day to sort of do things for myself, whether that be stuff around the house or sit down and watch a movie or something like that. I think it's important to have breaks from all that stuff as well, and enjoy your life. But yeah, definitely have a clear direction of where you want to go.
That leads me to my question for Josh and Nathan. You guys can obviously train together, I guess. I know there's social distancing rules and all that sort of stuff. Have you upped the ante at all, or has this actually given you a chance to take a bit of a break and reset the mind?
I guess a good mixture of both. At the beginning, we definitely took a little bit of a step back. Josh actually came back from 2 fairly significant surgeries over the past 12 months, and I'd been dealing with a few injuries that you just completely ignored because you couldn't afford to have worry about that, and you needed to compete regardless of whether or not you're 100% healthy. So we would compete regardless of whether or not we were healthy. So we did get that opportunity to sort of step back, let our body rest a little bit, and then we're still motivated, we're still fit, we're still healthy. So we want to train and try and make the most of this period. There are still a lot of ways that you can improve if you can adjust the goalposts a little bit, and there are a lot of ways I feel like that you can get a little bit of an edge over people. And motivation sometimes is difficult because for us, we're always working towards the next competition or the Olympics. But when that drive is there, I think the motivation always will be up and down depending on the circumstance and the environment. But when that goal's there and that drive's there, I feel like you're always able to get that work done regardless of how you're feeling that particular day. So we are lucky. We're fortunate we have each other to hold ourselves accountable to, which is a big difficulty for a lot of people. But yeah, similar to what the messages that have already been said, setting that routine and then trying to be as accountable as we can to each other or to someone. It might not be a brother for some people, but someone that can hold you accountable. And at the end of the day, you always feel better when you get that work done compared to that feeling in your mind, that little bit of guilt that you didn't really get the most out of that day and what you really could do.
Definitely having a way to keep yourself accountable, whether it's another person or for people that are isolated and completely by themselves, whether that's like daily goals like Dave was talking about before, then those goals keep themselves accountable. So just sort of staying on task as much as possible to keep that motivation level as much as it could be.
That's great. We've got a couple of questions that have been sent in, and I'll start with you, Sammy. How important is mental toughness, do you think, during this time? And do you use mental visualization as a part of your normal preparation with things you do?
Yeah, I think being mentally tough has certainly exposed us more now because you are individually isolated. And one thing that I love how we're all kind of speaking the same messages, it must mean that we might be all doing the right thing. But for me, one learning in terms of mentally, I'm used to being accountable to teammates or people and get motivation from the person next to me pushing me or seeing them kind of driving. So one way that I challenged myself was finding ways to keep myself accountable by connecting with other people. So I'm working through just an example, my advanced coaching certificate. And for me, one way to get myself actually doing it was to reach out to my mentor and say, I'm going to get this to you. This is what I need to do. So that the next day I found motivation to get through that, do it. And then someone was relying on me. So I think mentally you learn a lot about yourself and how you're wired and how you work. It's then challenging yourself to, push yourself into things that you don't like. So I like routine. I like a sense of feeling like I've achieved something at the end of the day. The busier I am, the better I work, the more time I have, the lazier I get. So for me, challenging myself to have a conversation with someone to then keep myself accountable to be able to achieve something is mentally what I've learnt during this time. And it's a different way of learning compared to what you're used to. You turn up and mentally don't feel switched on or motivated that day, you'll have a teammate or a coach or someone else driving you. So that's just one way I've learnt during this time.
Yeah, it's very good. Kingy, resilience is obviously very important with whatever field you're in, especially in elite sport. How have you built that over time?
I think for me, I've been sort of building my resilience for years now, leading up to my NRL career as well. You know, I spoke about before having to do my apprenticeship and playing NRL at the same time. Back in 2016 when I was undertaking that, there was a lot of uncertainty around, whether I would be able to finish my apprenticeship, whether I'd get signed off, do I leave my job and waste the last 3 years to go and have a shot at footy that, it's a very uncertain thing. Footy, can end any day sort of thing. So things like that, I guess, putting in the work really helped me, I think, just being able to get on with it and, see the end of the tunnel, see the light and just work towards that. In more recent times, speaking about the mental game, that, bad form and things like that can get to you sometimes. And a couple of years ago, it got to me sort of thing. And I sort of had to pick myself back up and just keep on battling on. And like I spoke about, just have goals to work towards to give you motivation to, pick it back up each day and work your hardest to try and get where you want to be. And
how rewarding was that? Because sometimes there's no one officially will say to you, I noticed that, well done, but on a personal note, that must have been rewarding. Yeah, definitely. Them little goals you set yourself, when you achieve them, I don't think you can describe, being able to have finished my apprenticeship and to be able to debut in the NRL and do all those things. Now I'm just so grateful that I could be able to do all those things. Honestly, I still pinch myself every day to see the opportunities that I've been given and see what I could achieve when I really put my mind to it. I love that. We've got another question that's been sent in. I'll pass it on to the Katz brothers. Obviously, a lot of negatives during this time, and I know we've put a positive spin on everything. What is sort of the main positive for you two boys out of this situation? Because there's always a positive if there's a negative.
Yeah, I guess for us, we drew the positive that was being able to spend some more time with our family. And I know that's not necessarily the case for everyone. Some people have to separate away from their family, but I guess looking at this time as an opportunity to improve yourself as opposed to looking at it as a burden. And I guess we were guilty as well of falling into a bit of a rut the first couple of days, couple of weeks of just sort of watching TV and not really doing anything. But then using the time as an opportunity to improve in physically, but also mentally, and getting to contacting as many people that you necessarily hadn't spoken to for a long time, and got to work on a couple of things on a personal level that maybe you had to push aside because you were so focused on I guess for us was the lead sport, but for other people might have been work or for anything that was going on.
And touching on what Josh said, it's all of a sudden you have time. I feel like that's something that when in the past before COVID and life was very busy for most people and it's hectic, and always that one thing you wish you had was a little bit of time to do something, and all of a sudden now you have an excess amount of time to do all these things that in the past you would have wanted to do. But I feel like because of the situation, it's really easy to look at that time as a negative. So we just tried to embrace all of a sudden you have a lot more time to do things that you might not have had the opportunity to do pre-COVID, and just to make the most of that time. And that doesn't necessarily mean being busy all the time and filling your entire day, but at least making some sort of benefit out of this period, because it isn't all positive. It's easy to put a good positive spin on it, but it is a difficult time for a lot of people. So accepting that it isn't all great, but then still trying to make the most out of that situation.
It would be, Sam, would it be from that? I think they've probably nailed it on the head, is controlling what you can control.
Yeah, I think so. That's been most of the messaging tonight is, going back to what you can control. Otherwise, you just stress and worry about things that you can't. And that's something that we've been taught as athletes. I think all of my pathway is controlling what you can. And I think I've touched on it tonight. I haven't been very good at it. And certainly this has been an example that's challenged me to get used to, putting your energy into things that you can control and being more proactive with that, rather than, I've probably wasted so much time in the past, feeling stressed and worried, and having conversations that maybe need to happen when it's happened rather than prior to it happening. Sometimes things aren't as bad as what you think that they will be.
Yeah, I love that. Any one of you guys want anything else to say? Is there one parting message that you might have, Kingy or the Katz brothers or Sam? Anything else you wanted to add?
I think Dave sort of spoke about it before, but just use this time as an opportunity to upskill yourself, to make yourself better, whether that be through TAFE courses, online courses, whatever you can do, just to make yourself more employable, more desirable to someone to choose you over the next person. I think that's the biggest thing. Make use of the time while we've got it.
I think also one little point is, while we're able to put a really positive spin on everything and try and make the best out of this situation, it is okay not to always be okay, and to have had a fantastic day or to be struggling in this environment, because there are a lot of people some people potentially on this as well, that have lost jobs or are really struggling financially or mental health wise. While we're talking about being mentally strong, not every day we are mentally strong, and there are days that we are really struggling, and that is okay. There are people that are there to help. You just reach out, and those tough times don't last. It's really just, if you can keep going and keep picking yourself back up, this period isn't going to last forever, but accepting that it is okay to not always be okay, and that things are going to get better.
People are always just a phone call away. It's really easy to reach out and speak to other people.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I really appreciate your time this evening. Thank you to Sam Poolman from the GWS Giants.
Pleasure. I love, I think this is the first panel I've ever done where our messaging's all been the same and strong. And Josh took the words out of my mouth. That was one thing that was given to me at the start of this virus was, by the end of it, can you sit in a job interview? Can you go back to your employer? Can you sit there and say, these are the proactive things that I did during COVID? If it's a course on leadership, I'm doing a lot on that. If it's upskilling with your job, there's so many things that you can do. I know the TAFE's doing free online courses, but if you can get to the end of it and sit there and go, this is what I did during this time, I think people are going to see your character rather than going, wow, that past 8 weeks, I did nothing and I've got nothing to show for it. So again, that positive spin that we keep putting on it, but that's one thing that was said to me. And I've signed up to so many free podcasts, online workshops to make sure that I can still learn and upskill myself during this time. But thanks for having me. I've loved it.
Yeah, great. Josh King, thank you very much for joining us from the Newcastle Knights. All the best this season. And I know personally I've really loved your input tonight.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And the judo boys, keep your hands off each other. Don't get too fired up. But no, I really appreciate your input. I thought that messaging around, making sure that you are feeling what you feel. If that is not great, that's okay to feel that way. But knowing that if you're, one step ahead of the next one, things will turn around. So really appreciate Josh and Nathan Katz as well.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, much appreciated.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you got plenty out of it and appreciating the time with the guys tonight.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, everyone.